everyone. Welcome back to the UNC Chapel Hill Esports Twitch stream. I am joined here live in the studio by the one and only Dr. Bartolo. Thank you so much for joining us during the trouble, not the trouble in the triangle, but the triangle takedown between UNC and NC State. We've got a little bit of a wellness workshop for you guys, some health tips in esports. What are you most looking forward to talking about with us today?
I think the fact that we're going to be talking about pretty simple habits that you can incorporate into your regular life that then can boost your esports performance. So I love that they're mostly simple tips.
Well, let's get into it. The studio and the space is yours. Dr. Bartolo, take it away for us.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Coming off a big Carolina win here, getting ready for another Carolina win later today. But now we're gonna focus on health tips to boost your esports performance. So I'm a sports medicine physician here at UNC, and I've been working with the UNC Chapel Hill Esports teams as a physician advisor this academic year. And let's just dive right into it. Oop, let's go back. I don't know how to go back. Anyway, so health tip number 1, engage in regular physical activity. So esports in general are a bit sedentary. We're sitting down. We're small muscle athletes, so we're doing a lot of fine motor movements with our fingers and our wrists and our arms. We're not doing big, large movements like you are when you're playing basketball or soccer. But engaging in regular physical activity, like aerobic exercise, has actually been shown to potentially improve your esports performance. So it takes us to point number 1 here. There actually was a research study that showed, this was looking at players playing League of Legends, that when they engage in 15 minutes of HIIT, which is high intensity interval training, prior to playing, they had improved performance, which means they were doing a better job of eliminating a higher amount of targets, but they also were more accurate. So they had fewer errors while they were also eliminating more targets. So a little bit of a plug there. It was a small study. I don't want to blow it out of proportion as being like, this is proof that it will, but I think that it suggests that, and there's lots of benefits of physical activity. Another thing is that it can improve your cognitive functioning. So there's plenty of research that shows that doing aerobic exercise particularly can improve your executive functioning. So what are executive functions? These are motor planning. This is memory, working memory, making decisions, knowing when to do something and when not to do something. These sound like all skills that we use a lot when we're playing esports, right? We need to have our head in the game. So if we're doing physical activity outside of our gaming, it will help our brain be better primed to play better when we're playing esports. And finally, doing regular physical activity and exercise can help improve your mood regulation and emotions. So we're going to be talking about this, a bit of a preview when we talk about tilt a little later, which Mac Dewey here kind of alluded to. But we want to have our moods more stable. We don't want to be swinging from extremes to extremes. And physical activity outside of gaming can help us do that. And as I said, we'll get into this a little bit more later. Tip number 2, standing breaks every 45 to 60 minutes. Bonus points for movement during those standing breaks. So, understandably, different games will have different times where it's easier to take a standing break. So I recommend that you apply this to your esport of choice and make sure it incorporates in a normal intervals for you whenever a game stops and you have an opportunity to stand. But why do we stand up? Why does it matter? Well, when we stay in the same position for long periods of time, we're putting ourselves at increased risk of injury. So this is especially true if you have bad posture or if you're in a bad position that's pressing on a nerve or something like that, and then you're sitting in that position for hours and hours and hours. Now you're adding insult to injury and you're predisposing yourself to having overuse injuries. So if we stand up regularly, and this is true even if you have the best gaming chair, you have like the top of the line, like Secret Lab chair, regardless of that, you still need to be standing up regularly because you need to get that body flowing. You got to get movement, blood flowing. You got to get movement and things like that. You can only focus for so long. So if you're sitting here and you're just trying to grind it out for hours and hours and hours, your brain eventually is going to force you to take a break. This is true of anything. This is true if you're studying for finals, if you're studying for a big presentation or studying for a big test. your brain is going to automatically force you to take a break. It can't focus for that long. So in order to combat that and having your brain force you to take a break at an inopportune moment, you can control this and choose when it's a good time for your brain to take a break. And you can do this when you're also having a standing break, right? So we can kind of like do a 2-for-1 with this. It's an opportunity to incorporate some movement. So we're standing up, taking our standing break, and we can incorporate some physical activity during these standing breaks. So we can do squats, we can do some jumping jacks, you can do some lunges, some arm circles, things like this. Whatever you choose to do, you can do this, and you're getting that 2-for-1 now. You're getting physical activity that can potentially help you game better, right? And you're also preventing overuse injuries. Health tip number 3, warm up before playing. So we do this before traditional sports, esports, no exception. We want to warm up because it gets our body ready to perform. Our muscles, they perform at their best at warmer temperatures. So you don't want to go ahead and just jump into doing a physical activity, including playing esports, without warming up your muscles and getting them ready and getting the message to be like, okay, we're going to be doing something. So then let's talk a bit about stretching. So I see a lot of people incorporating stretching before they play, which I think is great, and I commend you for doing that. But let's talk about the difference between dynamic stretching and static stretching, because there is a difference. So static stretching is when you're holding the stretch for a long period of time, something like 45 seconds to about 60 seconds and things like that. This is probably the type of stretching that you're most accustomed to. But there's also something called dynamic stretching. And what this is controlled movements throughout the range of motion of your joints and your body to then also allow the muscles to warm up and stretch at the same time. So dynamic stretching is what you want to do before competition. Why is this? When they did studies looking at dynamic stretching versus static stretching, dynamic stretching actually showed an increase in reaction time and movement time. So basically, reaction time is you have a stimulus, and then your brain is like, I'm going to do this movement to do it. Whereas movement time is once you start and initiate a movement, the amount of time it takes you to actually do that movement. So both of those things are really relevant to being really good at esports, right? Reaction time is the thing we talk about. We talk about, APM and all these things. And so we want to try and do dynamic stretching. We want to set ourselves up for success. We don't want to overstretch. So I'm going to show you some examples of that right now. I'm going to try and do this with the mic down. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me. All right. So some examples of warm-ups that I would recommend would be first starting out with what I call a torso twist. So you're going to be doing things like this, and we're going to twist this way and twist that way. This is important because it's warming up our core muscles and our postural muscles, which we'll talk about a little bit more later in the presentation. And they are really important to make sure that we're in really good posture when we're gaming. The goal for doing these is to complete the repetitions about 12 times for each movement. So we're doing this. The next thing we're going to do is try and warm up our upper back. We're going to go like this. We're going to do a shoulder roll. I'll move to the side here so you can see. We're doing a shoulder roll like this, trying to warm up our upper back muscles, which are also postural. I hope you can hear me. Okay, so then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to warm up our shoulders and our elbows and our wrists. So the first movement we're going to do, and I'll step back so you can see this, so you're going to put your arms up like this, and you're going to have fists like this, and you're going to push them up like this, and then you're going to push them out like this, and then out to the sides like this. So we're going to go up and out and to the side. And then you can incorporate opening your fingers when you get to the end. So open fingers, and out like this, open fingers. So we're trying to do this, and we're going to do this for 12 repetitions to try and warm up our arms before we start playing, okay? The next thing we're going to do, so I see a lot of people doing this stretch often. Doing something like this, right? You've all seen this. We see this too often when you're watching the pros play, right? So this is good in concept, but we're holding this for too long. We just talked about this. We don't want to hold it for too long. This is problematic and can affect our reaction times, right? Can you not hear me?
Not very well.
Oh no. Okay. I'm sorry if you missed all of that, or at least you could see the movement. So hopefully that worked out. So what we want to do instead for this, and I'll move to the side so you can see this better, is instead of holding it for a long period of time, instead we're going to move through it, right? So we're going to do this and this, this, and this. So we're still getting the stretch in our forearm muscles here, but we're not holding it for too long so that we're keeping our reaction time low, which is good. Then we're also going to move side to side like this. So this probably looks familiar. This is what we're doing with our mouse hand, right? So we want to move side to side, in and out, in and out. Okay. So then our next thing, which came up conveniently right now, is we want to include finger and hand coordination exercise to engage our brain as we're warming up too, right? Because we're doing a lot of brain to hand coordination when we're playing esports. So one of the ones I like to do to help warm up our fingers is it's going to be, I'll come a little closer here so you can see this, is you're going to basically go through all of your fingers tapping your thumb. So this and this, this and this, and then back the other way. So pointer finger, middle finger, ring finger, pinky. Ring finger, middle finger, pointer finger, and going through like this to help warm up those fingers, but also you're having to think about it because there's a sequence and a pattern here, so you're engaging your brain while you're warming up, okay? And then you would obviously do this with the other hand too, your keyboard hand, okay? Good, just like that. We've got people practicing in the studio here, which is great. Woo! All right.
Peak performance, everyone. Come on.
Yeah, there we go. And then another one that I like to do, so this was originally, it's called the Luria. It was originally designed to test cognitive functioning in people who maybe had a brain injury, but I think that it has a lot of usefulness as well because it's a sequence, it's a pattern, and you're using your wrists and your fingers. So the way that you do this is you're going to take one hand palm out, and you're going to take the other hand, you're going to make a fist and gently touch it down. We don't want to be slamming it. Those hands are precious, right? And go like this. And then we're going to make it like this, and we're going to chop down, right? Straight out like this, chop down. And then you're going to make it flat and give yourself a high five. And you're going to repeat that again. Fist, cut, high five. Nice and controlled. You will slowly speed it up. But once again, we don't want to go crazy with this and be like nuts like this. We want to keep it nice and controlled so we're not getting injured while we're trying to warm up, okay? So once again, it can take some practice if you're not used to doing it, but that's good because you're engaging your brain while you're warming up. You're warming up that connection between your hands and your brain. Okay.
Boom.
Boom, they're practicing in here. All right, I'll take that back. Here we go. Thanks so much, Mac Dewey. All right, so health tip number 4, pay attention to your posture. So we've alluded to this as well, earlier in the talk. So we've got an example here of, less than ideal posture over here on the screen. This person here is slouched forward. We've got our shoulders forward. It's causing our head to be back, and it's pinching off our neck, and it's not good for our spine at any level, low back, neck, or anything like that. So a supportive chair can help. This is true. And definitely wanting to make sure that your chair is setting you up for success and that your general setup is setting you up for success is really important. But do not think that having a single chair.
Dr. Bartolo.
Yes.
Would you say the Carolina Gaming Arena chairs support you in a good way?
Yes, they do. We've got lumbar support on our chairs here at the Carolina Arena, which is really important. And you make sure that you're keeping your back a little bit like this instead of hunched forward like this. But the chair is not enough. I don't want you to say, I have a gaming chair. I can get away with not doing other stuff. It's not enough. You still have to get up and move and take your standing breaks. Even if you're sitting in the best chair, like I said, if you're sitting in that best chair for like 9 hours a day, you're still going to have problems. So here's a point. The average human head weighs about 10 to 11 pounds. So this is why your posture matters. If we look at the example here on the screen, that 10 to 11 pound head is not meant to be held up by the muscles that are currently holding it up, having this head totally forward like this and the neck having to be extended. So that's why we want to make sure that we're pulling our belly button in, that we're bringing our shoulders back, and then we're leaning back into our chair, which is why the lumbar support is helpful. We want to avoid this rounded shoulders with head forward. Once again, I'm kind of driving this home. We want our shoulders back like this, kind of like when we were warming up, rolling our shoulders as part of our warm up. We're trying to engage and warm up those upper back muscles because they're going to be really important to make sure that our shoulders are not getting all rounded like this, which is going to put a lot of stress on our neck and ultimately cause tightness in the chest. I see this a lot in clinic with people who are using computers a lot. And I think that this is across the board with, posture, no matter what you're doing. And last but not least, how can you help support your posture? In addition to having a good chair, you also need to work on strengthening of your core and upper back muscles. So a lot of people, I say core, and they're like, great, I need to do crunches, I need to do sit-ups. No, that is not what I mean. When I think core, I think all of this and your back and your upper back. So some of my favorite exercises for helping to target your core and your upper back muscles are going to be an exercise called bird dog and your planks, your side and forward planks, as well as doing low rows. So when you're doing a row, I see a lot of people sometimes at the gym doing them up like this. This is a good exercise for strengthening the muscle up here, but a lot of times this is too tight because you've been having your head forward like this. We instead want to do our low rows with our elbows more at 90 degrees and making sure that we're pinching back our shoulder blades, not just moving our arms. This is not activating the muscle. Okay? Health tip number 5, give your eyes a rest. When they've done a bunch of studies looking at esports players and what kind of injuries plague them, the top of the list is eye strain. So digital eye strain is real. What are some symptoms of eye strain? We've got tearing of your eyes, burning, having a gritty sensation, feeling like you have blurry vision or you're seeing halos around lights, having a headache, especially in the front of your forehead like this, feeling like your eyes are dry and as you're trying to blink, it's not smoothly going over the surface of your eyes. These are all symptoms to suggest that you have eye strain or computer vision syndrome, as it's also come to be called. So, in order to combat this, we want to take regular breaks. Once again, we can try and do this all in one foul swoop with our standing breaks, doing exercise during our standing breaks, so we're getting some physical activity in. And during those standing breaks when we're doing some exercise, we're also going to want to rest our eyes. So by doing that and how we rest our eyes, because we've been looking really close and focusing really, really hard, we want to look at something further away. And research suggests that you want to look at something that's about 20 feet away, give or take. It's not like it's a die-hard rule or something, but you certainly want it to be something that's further away from you so that you're giving those eyes a break from looking up close. And you want to do this for at least 20 seconds. My opinion, round up to 30 seconds to at least a minute. Just give yourself a nice good break. And finally, if you're noticing that you're having a lot of those symptoms I just talked about that are consistent with eye strain, it's a good idea to go get your eyes checked by an eye doctor. This could be because you have, you need glasses, or if you do have glasses or contacts or other, correctional type things for your eyes, you might need an adjustment to your prescription because this can often be a sign of that. And so now a hot topic, those blue light filtering glasses. They're very, very popular. People love them. In general, in the research, though, there's some studies that say that they're good and they can be helpful. There's some that say that it doesn't really make a difference. I'd say at this point, from reviewing the current literature that's out there right now, the enthusiasm is kind of outweighing the evidence. That said, there's no evidence that they're harmful, except for maybe to your wallet. So if you feel like you want to try them and you can afford it, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But it is not an exception for not doing regular breaks, right? So if you've got glasses, it doesn't mean, I'm wearing my blue light filtering glasses, I don't have to take eye breaks. No. You still have to take your eye breaks, okay? Health tip number 6. Here we kind of talked about this. Recognize the warning signs of tilt and have an escape plan. So we talked about mood regulation earlier, so this is coming up. So before we get into when you're fully into tilt, right? But tools to help prevent it overall, 2 things: regular physical activity and meditation. So we talked about physical activity helping with mood regulation earlier. We want to do that regularly. Also, regular meditation has been shown to do this. They've, done functional MRIs, which means you're awake and they're taking a live MRI that has movement, has showed that it really helps your brain. We did a meditation session here with the esports teams here at UNC Chapel Hill a few months ago, and I believe it was the fall semester. And it was very helpful, and I know plenty of people from our teams that have now incorporated regular meditation into their routines. And so we know when you do that, you're less likely to swing from those extremes, right? So until it's mostly like we're succumbing to the extremes emotion, usually negative emotions, right? It's usually frustration, rage, anger, things like that. And then it's generally associated with poor gameplay as a result, right? We're starting to act irrationally. We're starting to, make impulsive decisions, and it's affecting our performance. We're not playing as well because of it. So if we can have better emotional regulation overall, we're less likely to swing from those things. And when something stressful happens, we're less likely to react in this like blow up type of way. We can be like, it's a stressful situation, but I've prepared for this. I can recover, I can shake it off, and I can get back in the game. Take note of your triggers, right? So everybody's a little bit different, but if you know, okay, I just lost 2 consecutive games, I can feel that tightness in my chest happening. I can feel my heart rate going up. I'm starting to clench my teeth. These are your warning signs. Those are your triggers. Then you know what's coming. And so then you can activate your escape plan, which we'll get to in just a second. But learn what your warning signs are. Learn what your triggers are so that you can get ahead of it before you're like fully tilted. Remove yourself from the situation. So let's say you're just like in the heat of it, and you've worked on recognizing, but it's happened. You weren't able to get ahead of it, and you're just like raging hard, and you're making really bad decisions and all these things. You need to remove yourself from the situation. You can't think clearly once that's happening. You can try all the things you want. It's not going to help it. Create a ritual. So as you're working on your emotional regulation, we're getting better with recognizing our triggers and stuff like that. If we want to try to be able to get back into the game without having to remove ourselves, we can create a ritual or an affirmation that can help bring our heads back into the game, give us some perspective of what's going on, and keep us from going full into tilt. And lastly, remind yourself that losing is learning. So we can't go into playing any kind of sport expecting to win all of the time. It's a game, right? So there's always going to be someone who wins and then someone's going to lose. It's just part of the experience. But we can choose to get angry and blame people and just get upset about the situation and that's it. Or we can choose to lose and learn from the situation, right? Take it as an opportunity to reflect on like, okay, what could I have done better there to potentially perform better in the future? So use it as a learning opportunity. Health tip number 7, stay hydrated. Stay hydrated. So we have a lot of water in our bodies, and our brain is a lot of water as well. So you want to water your brain. So even though we're not like super strenuous in esports, let's say it's like maybe a traditional sport where you're like dripping in sweat. Although I will say, if you watch some of the pros in their high stress situations, they're definitely getting a bit sweaty and misty up on their foreheads. But even very mild dehydration, so we're talking about like 1% to 2% of your general full body water content can negatively impact multiple things that are important for good esports performance. And we're talking about you can negatively impact your concentration, your mood. You can feel more irritable. It can impact your working memory or short-term memory, which is really important to know, like where you are in the map or where you are with collecting skills. It also can affect your alertness. You can feel fatigued and groggy. So speaking of fatigue, we think of thirst as being, okay, that's like our number one signal that we're not adequately hydrating our bodies. But it's a little known fact that fatigue is also a really common early symptom that we're feeling a bit tired, and that's because we're not giving our body enough hydration. So next time you're feeling tired, go ahead, grab some water, chug it down. And let's see, my mouse is not working, so I'm going to ask for support from the studio here. Awesome. Thank you. So good hydration has also been found to be linked with faster reaction times. We talked about this earlier. Our reaction time is how quickly we're reacting to a stimulus and doing our movement, right? And so if good hydration can help us have faster reaction times, the opposite is true too. So if you're dehydrated a little bit, you're going to be sluggish not only mentally, but also physically. And we'll move forward, please. Health tip number 8, caffeine in moderation. So let's talk about the positive aspects of caffeine. Slide, please. So we know that caffeine can help improve lots of things. So it can improve our physical endurance, it can improve our focus and our concentration, it can improve how alert we are, it can improve our reaction times. Once again, reaction times coming up, it's really important. There's lots of ways that you can impact your reaction times. And it can also help us be better at remembering things, and it can also help our mood. So when you have a little bit of caffeine, you're going to get a little bit of an elevation in your mood. You're going to feel a little bit happier. You're going to be more motivated, and you're concentrating. So these are all the benefits. But everything in moderation. So excessive caffeine can also cause problems. And we'll talk about, what does excessive caffeine mean? So in general, recommendations are not to exceed about 400 milligrams of caffeine in a day. So what does that look like in the standpoint of something that's a little bit more understandable? So that's going to be 4 8-ounce cups of coffee. That's going to equate to 400 milligrams of caffeine, because your average cup of coffee is about 100. So yes, caffeine's good, but if we drink too much, we're going to start having problems. And what's that going to look like? We're going to be irritable, which is not great. When most esports are a team sport, you don't want to be snapping at your teammates. You can feel shaky. Well, that's not good. We don't want to be, activating things on our keyboard because we're shaky and tremulous because we have had too much caffeine, and then we're hitting things when we shouldn't. We can feel restless. We can have trouble sleeping, which can impact our performance. That's coming up on a slide. We can have muscle twitching. All of these things are impacting our ability to play well because we're not activating our clicks on our mouse, and we're not activating our keyboard appropriately. So we want to make sure that we're not overdoing it. And lastly, we talked about the benefits of caffeine. We talked about, we don't have too much caffeine, but how can we utilize the benefits of caffeine in the best way? So in general, when you're having caffeine, the maximum benefits of it are going to happen at about 60 minutes. So that means you want to consume your caffeinated beverage about 60 minutes before a competition so that you're maximizing and you're taking advantage of those maximum benefits. Prioritize getting sleep. So we talked about this on the previous slide. So why is sleep important? So we know that sleep is important. It's kind of throughout everything. It's in mainstream world that everyone's aware of it in the public. But sleep deprivation has lots of downsides. So once again, that reaction time, it's going to go up, which means that it's going to be slower when we're sleep deprived. We're not going to be able to pay attention. We're going to feel sluggish. We're going to be distractible. Our memory is going to be pretty poor. We're going to be more prone to making errors. We're going to feel more irritable again. We're going to make bad decisions, all of these things. And this has been shown to be true with short-term sleep deprivation after just 24 hours, right? Like you got a bad night's sleep and they showed you the next day. All of this was true. So you can only imagine what the effect would be like if it's, a very chronic thing for you. If you're regularly not getting enough sleep, if you're getting like 5 hours of sleep every single night, it's going to be a chronic thing for you. Sleep is also really important for memory consolidation. So what is that? That's when we take something that is a newly learned thing, like in the short term, we just learned something or we just had a new experience. Yes, exactly. You just went through all this time, or you just did, just participated in a scrim and you just figured out this perfect combo with your skills, and then you don't get any sleep. So what we do is when we learn all those things and then we sleep, we're going to be moving all of that memory to a more long-lasting, long-term form so we can remember it in the future and we can utilize that knowledge, as opposed to we learned this great thing and then we didn't sleep and it's gone and we're not really utilizing that. Health tip number 10. Go see someone, like a doctor, if you're having concerning symptoms, okay? So don't just be like, oh, it's nothing, no big deal, it'll get better, I'm young, most people play esports are younger, and I'll just get better on its own, whatever. But no, if you're having pain and numbness and tingling, especially weakness, go see someone about it, get it checked out. Maybe it isn't a big deal, but allow the professionals to help you figure that out. And this is especially true if it's been going on for more than 6 weeks. So we in medicine think about something, being an acute thing that's more likely to self-resolve on its own if it's been going on for less than 6 weeks. But once you pass into that over 6 weeks part, you're in that subacute and you're slowly going to be heading into it becoming chronic, and it can get harder to treat things as they become more chronic. So I have a couple pictures here on the screen of me and my ultrasound machine. So I use my ultrasound machine in my clinic to help me see in real time what's going on with people's nerves and their muscles and their tendons. It's kind of like an MRI, but it's in real time in the office. And what makes it different from an MRI is that I can do a dynamic assessment. So what does that mean? It means that I can see you moving. I can see, because sometimes things are not evident as being a problem when you just take a picture, like a snapshot of it, right? But then when I look at it and I'm having you do the thing that brings on your pain, we can see a lot more what is causing the problem and can be helpful at arriving at diagnosis and help me figure out how to help treat you and get you back to what you would love to do, like gaming. So thank you so much for your attention. I hope you learned some stuff from these simple tips to help improve your esports performance. And I hope that you incorporate these into your daily routine. And if you have any questions, feel free to follow me on Instagram at HighScoreSportsMD. I'm also on Discord. Feel free to message me. And thanks again, and good luck to the teams that are competing in the Triangle Takedown tomorrow.